Click record. I'm going to hand it over to Trevor. Thanks for joining us today.
Hello, everyone. It's nice to be here. So again, I just mentioned this to Jamie before things started, but I am a Webex type of a guy. So hopefully I won't trip up too much while doing this. Okay, so can folks see me now? Excellent, thank you. Okay, so this is one of those things that's a little bit different. In Webex, when I talk, I immediately am the person that shows up on my screen. So let me just adjust things myself for a moment so I can see myself. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to be talking today about getting in front of your students virtually. If you read the description, I'm going to kind of play this a little bit by ear as we go. But what I would like to do first is let you know that the slides are available, and I just put this into the chat. And this is, again, is one of those spots where, there, let me bring this window up so I can see it with the chat. Okay, and I also have some things available at polleverywhere.com. So if you have that up and ready to go, either in a window or on your phone, you can answer some of my questions. I will not have as many as Jamie did earlier, but I certainly agree that getting your students active does involve, it's very helpful to have some polling type software. So I'm going to talk about how to improve what's going out into the world. And I'm going to hopefully get folks not afraid of being on camera. It makes a huge difference if you can do that. And any way you can engage your students is always going to be good. So as I mentioned, Webex or Zoom, I will tend to say Webex when I mean generic virtual presentation software. So, or virtual meeting software. And when I say remote student, I mean anybody that's not physically in the same room as you. So that person could be live in a different location, or it could be somebody who's watching a video sometime down the road. Okay, so here is my first poll everywhere. If folks could go ahead and let me know how often you're online or how often you're on camera on a remote session. That would be great. So I had one student this semester that, or actually last semester, so it wasn't like in the spring, it was in the fall. Well, I'm sorry, it was in the spring after the fall, after the spring that got cut up. The student in the fall said I was the only professor that they actually saw during the course of the semester, which kind of was disheartening to me. A lot of people were just coming on, they would only have voice, or they just never actually met for the classes that they were supposed to have online. So I'm using Poll Everywhere software. If you notice down here in the corner, you can set up a clock. That's something that I just learned the other day while I was practicing my talk. And it's good to see that most people are on quite often. That's good, at least half the time, or about half the time, or even more than that. Okay, so just a little bit about myself. I am an associate professor, recently minted at Finger Lakes Community College. I am a teaching ambassador for SUNY. I have a big interest in accessibility, and I'll be teaching HyFlex for the first time in the spring, but I've been teaching kind of this virtual remote, and I'll be doing that about a hybrid during the summer, or excuse me, during the next whatever semester we're coming into. I do a couple of things on the side. I have a website for my students. It's called Physics This Week. And I do some videos for that. I have a great video up on what folks see when you use HonorLock that has 100,000 views so far, the best I've ever had. And I also teach technology things on the side as well. So being able to have your students see you, I think is fairly important. And I apologize, I'm playing around. There we go. So This is comments from one of the students. Although I will be rushed today because when I'm teaching normal students, I am generally pretty laid back. When I'm doing a presentation, just like most folks, I get a little nervous. I tend to speed up a little bit. But one of the things my student said was that I did natural pacing and I slowed down and I asked questions a lot of times. And then I gave students time to ask those questions. So if anybody does have a question and you want to unmute, go ahead and do that. I may tell you that I'm going to get to that eventually, but I would certainly like to answer any questions. And I do have my, my chat open. And thank you for putting those things up, Jamie, for me. And by being able to be on the screen here, students could actually see me, and it wasn't just the excitement in my voice that was coming through. They could actually see me playing with things. As I am a physics professor, I've got all kinds of little doodads on my desk that I can start playing with and actually demonstrate things for them. Okay, so one of the reasons that you want to try to be in front of your students, make sure that you have your cameras on and things like that, is as primates, we like to see other primates. I want to show you a couple of ways you can look a little better online by adjusting your, thank you, in the chat for, yeah, go to view and talk about speaker. I have a slide similar to that a little bit later, but I suppose I should have put that up. I'll do that for my next round on this. Okay, but I want to show you some things about lighting and some things about sound, and then a few extras that you can put into it. So these are some Maquis monkeys, and you can see one of them is looking at the person with the camera. One of them is looking into the background. I'm sure that there's somebody over in this direction that one of them is looking at. And as human primates, you know, here's folks, we all want to be seen and see each other. Okay, so a couple of generic things that I want to talk about. And even this far into the pandemic, I still see these things sometimes on going on with people in meetings and so on. So one of the best things you can do is invest in a little bit of lighting. And when I say invest in a little bit in lighting, I really mean just think about what lights you have in the room, maybe move one a little bit, maybe move your camera around a little bit. So I've got a couple of examples here. Here, I've got a window behind me and I've got a light on in the room. Here, I opened up the window behind me and you can just barely make out the fact that I have glasses on. Over here, I just literally moved from one side of my table to the other. And you can see me quite a bit better. I didn't turn any lights on or off for this transition, but I still have my window in the background and it kind of dims things up. Here, I just moved my camera just a tiny bit so that now the lighting in the room is much better and you can see behind me. Notice I've got some lights up here in my kitchen. Those things you want to make sure you have turned off. Otherwise, it creates a bright spot in the front of the room and it might be difficult to see you unless you have some type of a light in front of you to kind of brighten things up. Okay, with your camera positioning, just a little bit of adjustment can make a huge effect. So in this top picture, my laptop is down on my desk and it's looking up at me, almost not quite up my nose, but pretty close. In this second picture, this one right here, all I did was took a storage container, put my laptop up on it, and then I did prop it up a little bit. It's one of those with a kickstand, and I adjusted it up a little bit. So now you can see me a little bit better. You don't see as much as the ceiling. If I did turn these lights on, I could probably adjust it just a little bit more. I should have moved my wine glass out of the background, but you can definitely now see me a little bit more. And it kind of looks like I'm looking into the camera rather than I'm looking down at folks. I'm still looking into the camera. In the setup that I have right now, my camera is right up here. My PowerPoint presentation is in a different spot, but what I'm sending out is right here in front of me. Okay, the other thing to think about is sound. So Jamie asked everyone to mute their microphones. Sometimes during meetings, this is this is difficult. I will be saying something and then I'll hear myself in the background. Make sure that you wear headphones and get your students to wear headphones as well. If you are teaching hybrid, this is really going to matter in the classroom, because if a student has their microphone on their computer in the classroom, you might get multiple echoes going on. Okay, so almost all of the echoes that you hear are caused by processing delays. You say something into the microphone, it gets sent out into the internet, comes out your speaker and back in. If this speaker's in somebody else's room, then you get that feedback loop and you can hear it. And not every noise canceling headphone or microphone will catch those. Okay, if you have the money, invest in a good microphone. I did just pre-pandemic purchase a Blue Yeti microphone. I'm really glad that I did. It was almost like I knew something was coming, even though I didn't. Put it on a boom arm. You can see this one is connected, or get it up off of your table so that when you tap and things like that, that doesn't come quite as through. And you do not have to have this right up in front of your face. You can have it off to the side. In fact, I can usually adjust this so that it's not even visible. I usually keep it up here a little bit higher so that it's a little easier for folks to hear me, and I don't have to talk quite as loudly. Okay, now, can you hear my air conditioner running in the background? Somebody wants to pop that into the chat. Okay, excellent. I forgot to turn it off. I normally do turn it off, but you can actually adjust your settings to cut out that background noise. I know it's really easy to do it in Webex, but there's a setting also here in Zoom that you can do that. If you are a science teacher and you teach physics of sound, like I do, you have to turn that off, or whenever you're playing things like just pure tones, they will get erased out of your feed. Okay, I'm not going to go into the details of setting up your camera, but because every camera is going to be a little bit different and every operating system is a little bit different. But you can see here several different settings that I changed. Up here is in the far corner is what my computer really wants to send out. If I adjust the auto exposure, it doesn't look like I've been inside for the last year and a half. It actually looks like I've been able to get out into the building a little, or out of building a little bit. Okay, over here, and you can see I'm running past the edge of my green screen. Over there, I have things a little bit too dark, and over here, I have it a little bit too bright. You should be able to adjust the exposure on your camera to be able to do these types of things. And if you can get in there, it will make you not look like death warmed over. Okay, yeah, I see there's a comment about automatic filtering. If you're doing live music, so you're a music professor of any type, there are ways that you can set those up so that there's not as much of a delay, and you can play things around you. You may have noticed at the beginning I was playing some music in the background here in my office, so that you can send that out in quote unquote live mode. Okay, so I showed this to somebody at the kind of, I would like to say early pandemic. I guess early pandemic's a good way to say it. I think we're in late early pandemic at this point. But there is an option in Webex. If you go to view and go down, there is a light theme and a dark theme. A colleague of mine was having a lot of trouble with headaches. When she put it onto the dark theme, it made her life a little bit easier. And you can notice in the background on my PowerPoint, I'm using gray so that it's not quite so bright for my students out there, so that it's a little less likely to induce headaches. Okay, the other thing I like to do is not hide names in the videos. That way you can see your students. I'm really not looking forward to going back into a classroom and having to remember every student's name without having it, you know, kind of glowing in front of them. Okay, so as Jamie did point out, there are ways that you can set up what is going out into the world. if you go into layout, and this is true in Webex as well as Zoom, I recommend that my students pick stack or side by side so that they can kind of see what everybody else is doing in the room, but they can see me as well. Okay, and right now I am not sharing my screen. The reason I don't like to share my screen is because when you flip in and out of sharing your screen, there's often a little bit of dead time for it. But by doing this, students can do it. I was about halfway through the spring semester or the fall semester this past year, and one of my students finally explained to other students that they could do that and they could suddenly see a lot more of the class. And I wasn't just a little tiny box down in the corner. So make sure your students know how to do this. And even though we have been in the pandemic for a while, you can't assume that your students always know what's going on. In a classroom, we expect students to be able to walk into the room and face the front of the room. It's not necessarily quite as easy while we're online. Okay, if you're going to share content, one of the things you want to make sure that you do is that you optimize it for motion and video, especially if you're going to have things like GIFs play in the background, if you're going to have any type of music playing, or even though it's kind of meta, sometimes I show videos while I'm actually teaching my classes. This way the sound will go out into the world. So you do that, and then make sure that you're picking out the right thing that you want to send out. So here, I like to send out the screen that's over on that side of my room so that anything that I want to drag in here, I can just drag it in and send it out into the world. And then I can drag it right back out. So if you have a multi-monitor setup, that's great. You can share windows, but I have found in Webex that if I try to just share a window, it always leads me into trouble. Okay, so this is my desk, and I would love to say that I spent a lot of time trying to clean it up for this picture. Or I would like to say that I didn't spend a lot of time cleaning it up for this picture, but I did. I do recommend that you get multiple monitors if you can, if you're going to be teaching this way. When I go back into my classroom here in the fall, I am going to actually have my laptop set up. I'm going to have the classroom set up so that I can see things in different spots. And I'm actually going to sign in twice so that I can monitor the chat while I'm still in the room. I have yet to see exactly what Finger Lakes has put together for us. I've heard that it's pretty neat, but I will be going in sometime in the next few weeks to see that firsthand. If you can do a wireless keyboard, you can get this in and move it out of your way if you need to. You can see right here in the picture, I've got another webcam that I can send out into the world. I've got one up here. I've got another one up above me, even further, so that I can do multiple things. If you have a microphone and you're using headphones, it's best to plug the headphones into the microphone if you can. But I always have my backup wired headphones, so when these things go dead, or the batteries in these go dead, I can jump into that. And the question that a few people have been asking about, probably the biggest thing that you can do is learn a program called OBS. So to get in front of my screen this way, that's what I'm doing, is I'm using a program called OBS. Okay, so let me transition here. And one of the things to realize when you're using this type of software is that in a broadcast control room, you can see down here below me, there are multiple people in there that are running the sound, that are running the effects, turning the lights on and off, and all that type of thing. If you are the person in the front of the room, it is not going to be Bill Nye quality that's going out into the world. As far as inexpensive headphones for students, Karen, if you have a 5 Below anywhere near you, they will have wireless headphones throughout the year. Sometimes they don't have them in stock. As time has gone on, they've had them in there more, but they have wired headphones for $5 or less, so they can get there. And if you just look on an Amazon, and look at the daily deals, they almost always have something on there for $10 or less. The wireless ones there tend to get a little bit more expensive. I think I spent about $20 for these ones. Okay, so Open Broadcast Software is a free software that you can get out there. It lets you set up different scenes, and you set up the scene over here, and then that's your preview, and then you can transition into it over here. It gives you a little bit better camera control, and it also allows you to do picture-in-picture and green screen. So Carol, yes, they can use their AirPods. I have had a little bit of trouble with AirPods myself because Windows doesn't seem to control the volume well for them. So they always come out. And OBS, Dr. Stephen, does not require a green screen. I do have one back there behind me. In fact, if I show you my raw camera, if I want to do something with a virtual background, I have to do that, but it's not absolutely necessary. And in fact, I'm going to leave this background up behind me. Well, actually, not quite yet, but I will put it out here in a moment. Okay, so for OBS, like I said, you've got your preview and your program going out. If you've ever watched a program where they have a newsroom of some type, yes, if you're going to jump in front of your screen, you're like I was doing the weatherman effect, you do have to have a green screen. If you want to do picture-in-picture like this, you can just do picture-in-picture very easily as well. Okay, so the idea behind OBS is over here, you've got scenes. These scenes are built out of sources. Sources are things like your camera or other items that you put together to go out. So in this setup, I've got my camera as a scene. I've got background removal where I remove the background from it. I've got my center screen, which is going out, and then I put those together in the output. Okay, the output that goes out, you can actually start a virtual camera and it sends the information from OBS out into the world as though it were my webcam right in front of me. So you can get some pretty neat effects when you do this, but you don't have to get ridiculously fancy. I've done this with just live going out, sitting on my laptop out on the patio to do that, because it does give me a little bit more control over the camera. Okay, yeah, actually, I can give you two things. So somebody just wrote into the chat about this. I do have something about putting picture-in-picture together, and I have a YouTube video set up for it that you can also watch. Okay, if you're looking for this, if you look for using OBS for teaching, you'll get a couple of videos. If you watch something on using OBS for streaming on Twitch, that's where kids sit in front of video games and make videos so other kids can watch them play video games that are coming out. And there's all kinds of information that's out there. Okay, and you can do your desktop out from here. In fact, let's see. Nope, that's not what I want to do. Okay, so here's my desktop. I can go right out from here and I can show whatever I want. So if I wanted to move my OBS window over here to show it, if I wanted to bring up an Excel spreadsheet or whatever, I could do that and have it right here in front of me. Okay, so let me get back into Actually, no, let me go into the steps to actually do this. So there is going to be some ghosting that's going on here. So basically OBS is sending out a picture of OBS inside OBS and it goes back in there. It's kind of hard to avoid that while you're doing this type of a setup. So let me show you a more simplified version of it. So right here, I've got my camera that is just me. Okay, that is a video capture device. All I had to do here was hit plus and add in a video capture device. And I can either use one that's already on the books, or I can pick out all the different ones that I have at my desktop. Okay, so here's another one that I have. If you only have one camera, that's all that's going to be there to pick out. Okay, then I go to a new scene here that's called presenter software. I have set this up as a display capture, which is my monitor here on the left-hand side that's going out. Right now, because I'm showing this on the left-hand monitor, it's there. Okay, and then the next step that I want to do is called picture in picture, where I take these two scenes, the camera and presenter software, and I layer them on top of one another. So let me build the picture in picture again. And I'm just going to label this as scene 2, just because all I'm going to do is add in here a scene. I'm going to pick the camera. And then I'm going to add another one, which is also a scene that I've already set up. That is the presenter software. And notice that that is behind my camera. So I just move it down. Whatever's on top will be the one that's on top. And then if I hold my Alt key down, I can adjust what's actually showing. Whoops, I think one of the things that will happen here sometimes is if you are in the middle of doing something here, you have to switch screens a little bit for things to show up. There we go. Oh, I'm sorry. I definitely see what I was doing here. My presenter software, I grabbed the wrong one. Here's my presenter software. Let me make that full screen again. When I go to my camera, there we go. So it's really easy to make mistakes with this. You just need to play with it a little bit. So I can crop this down and then I can adjust the size of it. In the video that I put the link to kind of does this step by step so that you can see it rather than me doing it real quickly here in front of you. Okay, so somebody else asked how long was my learning curve on this software. To do it passively, maybe a week or two. To do it well, it probably took most of that first semester. And I was using my hour-long commute time that no longer existed to kind of learn how to do these types of things. It is something that I had always been interested in. And in fact, I had bought the green screen. I had bought because I like to make videos for my students. And then I suddenly realized that I could send these things out live. Okay, is anyone else getting a repeat loop on the video or on the audio? That might actually be me this time. Okay, other people aren't? I just realized that I might have been sending out things through my own speaker, but I'm not hearing those here. Okay, so let me get this out of the way and bring this back. If you look at the presentation notes that I put the link in for, I actually have the step-by-step to do these things. Okay, when you're actually presenting, basically what you're going to do is you're going to choose down in your right-hand corner, this start your virtual camera. In what I like to do when I'm using Webex, it's obviously not working as well as it did for, or it worked better in Webex than it did for Zoom. I like to put that onto this screen right in front of me so that when I'm looking at my screen, I'm not looking off to the side like you may have noticed me doing today. But then in Webex, I can actually choose my virtual camera, and that's what's being sent out is my feed out into the world. Okay. Are the audio and video out of sync? Okay. Yeah, that's one of those things you never know for certain. So when one student asks me about things, I like to ask if other people are experiencing it. Sometimes it's just your internet connection. Sometimes there might be something else running on your computer that's just delaying things a little bit. There's a lot of things that can come into this. Okay, so I've got a couple of options. When I started to make this presentation, I had just a ton of ideas for it. So what I'd like you to do is, let me make sure this is activated. So I'd like to know what you'd like to see next out of these 4 options. There you go. I think you should be able to get into it. There we go. Doing things like this actually gives you a moment to take a drink of coffee so you don't wear your voice out while you're talking in front of students. Okay, so it looks like we almost have an even split here. Okay. So everything that well, not everything, but when I talk about whiteboards, you don't need a green screen to do that. So since that's first on the list, I'm going to actually jump to that and just talk a couple of pros and cons here. And I apologize. This is one of those points where I'm adjusting what goes out into the world. If I had a producer, they would do these things all for me. Okay, so if you're not using a virtual whiteboard, I would highly recommend you do. The main reason for this is everyone can see it. So in a classroom, students way in the back may or may not be able to see it, especially if you're using an old marker that's on the board. If you can use a virtual whiteboard, then everybody can see it because it's usually projected onto a much larger screen in the room somewhere for folks to see. If students are using their laptops in the classroom, which even pre-pandemic I was recommending that they can do, it can be right up front to them. So somebody who forgot their glasses for the day can actually see it right there on their screen. And going out into the world, if you move away from the screen, not everybody can see it. These can be saved to go out into the world later. So you can put them in as part of your lecture notes. And you can pre-draw things on them if you need to. As a physics professor, I find that's really helpful to be able to do that. So I'm not spending 20 minutes just drawing things and going forward. And they're typically camera ready in the sense that you don't have to worry about the lighting and so on and going out. If you've ever seen a video of somebody at a whiteboard, it's very difficult sometimes to see. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I guess with my timer, I didn't put enough time on the timer. I apologize for that. I'll adjust that on the next one. Okay. The cons for this is if it's not on the screen, people can't see your whiteboard, and you can't tap or point at it very easily unless you're doing this type of thing. I know when I'm teaching, I like to wander around the room and then go back up and tap the board. You can't do that necessarily with a virtual whiteboard. Yeah, Megumi, I am certainly going to do this going forward. I'm going to set up my laptop that has a slate that I can actually write on and use that from here on out. Okay, once you erase the whiteboard in the room, it's gone unless you took a picture of it and then take the time later on to upload and download it. If you're sending this out into the world, it's right there in your video, ready to go. Okay, and if you're teaching in a classroom that only has 10 minutes between classes, you can't really pre-draw things. And the room cameras just never work well. Okay, they are visible until they're erased, and they're useful for emphasis, like I said, going and tapping at them. So Zoom and Webex both have them built in. I never use them. There is something called whiteboard.microsoft.com, but students have to have a Microsoft account. You have to have a Microsoft account to be able to use that. There's one called whiteboard.fi. This is from Kahoot, and it actually gives every student their own little whiteboard. Now, if they don't have something that they can write on, it doesn't really help them, but you can hide this from the others, or well, you just don't show everybody's whiteboard. So students can work individually, and you can kind of, instead of walking around the room to look at it, you can actually kind of see what's going on. You can call those up and then give them help as necessary. Okay, the one that I like to use is Microsoft OneNote. They've been telling me at Finger Lakes that I'm going to have an account where I can make class notebooks, but they haven't pushed this over to the faculty. I did take a class a couple of semesters ago, and I still have my student account, so I can do it from there. But it does allow you to save it permanently. While I'm not using my student account, I just use my own personal one, and then I can share this out. Okay, or I can take a screenshot of it. The beauty of this is that I can adjust this. I can write things big enough so students can see it. But then at the end, I can actually zoom out and kind of show the whole picture of, you know, we started up here at the top and then we worked our way down. And then here we figured something out as we went. Now, if I pull up my iPad and take a moment to get into it. Now, sometimes there's a little bit of a delay on this. And if I try to just hold it, and if you just made sure that your pen was charged last night, sometimes it disconnects. You can see there that I can write on here and get it to show up on the whiteboard. Now I can also get rid of this stuff. And if I put it down, rather than try to hold it up into the air, you can send things right out into the world. You can also, if there's something that you want to, oops, not what I wanted to hit. If you wanted to do something like highlight part of it, oops, that's not what I want. Oops, I can choose these different pens. Luckily, there's an undo setting for it. Let me grab this. I can change the color of ink. So when I'm doing my math things, I can go through and pick out variables and say right here, right here, right here. It tends to pick up all these little markings on it, but you can easily go in and erase those. So I just realized that I've been stepping away from here. Okay, so let's see. As far as students keeping their notebook after they graduate, if they have their own account, you can very easily open up 2 windows in here, and they can actually change the account that they're in. And of course, it's not going to let me do that. Okay, this is one of those I'm blanking on how to get to that other account. But basically, if they can figure out how to open up 2 windows, 1 in each account, then they can actually just go into anything that they want to save, whether it's a whole notebook or so on, and they can copy it, move or copy it, and they can copy it into their own setup. You're welcome, Jennifer. Okay, I have heard good things about Jamboard. I like this because once I do this, I have it saved up. So in my, let's see. So in my university physics notebook, I actually have information. We were talking earlier in the day about having announcements ready to go. I actually have a folder that's announcements, and I can copy these in and out. And then whenever students ask me to show things, I can actually go in and pull these up later on. One of the things I don't like about using a whiteboard like this is it's really not accessible unless I go back and make it accessible later on. And that is a lot of extra work to do. So I don't do every single problem this way when I'm teaching. But you could certainly take notes in a non-science class where you kind of put up, you know, the stuff that you'd write, you know, pros and cons on the blackboard. You can do it on here, and then it's relatively easy to go through and change things into text. Unfortunately, it doesn't always work very well. I can do ink to text. They're getting better as time goes on. So you can go back and kind of fix things. It doesn't do real well with equations, but there is some functionality in there to do that. Okay, does anybody else have any questions about whiteboards? Okay, the other thing I like about these, while I'm waiting to see if there are any more questions, is by doing my screen this way, where I'm using OBS, I can have my my information playing up here. Let me find my browser. I can actually bring a calculator right up onto the screen and do it. Now here I just took a photo of that. Okay, so the question is, everything it shows is Microsoft Whiteboards. No, this is Microsoft OneNote. So I'm doing it within OneNote itself. OneNote has the option where you can actually draw on the screen. I have the OneNote app on my iPad. I also have it on a laptop that has a touch screen on it, and I can do pen input there. It's going to my computer, and then from my computer, it's going out through Zoom. If you do have class notebooks available, you can save it right into the class notebook, and then the students have it immediately. Otherwise, you'd have to figure out a way to send it out. You can print it as a PDF from here. And yes, this would all work on a laptop. As long as your laptop isn't the $300 one that they sell at what do you call it, Black Friday or things like that. You do need to have a little bit of oomph to your laptop, but you can definitely send these things out. The other thing you might not be able to do is you might not be able to do green screen and run multiple windows at the same time. Yes, and you can, somebody was asking about taking things to the, from the textbook. Actually have a link to my textbook. So I can go right in here to the textbook. And I could grab this picture, and I have something called Snip and Sketch. On my computer, I can actually just go in, grab this. So there it is. I copy it, come into my notebook, and paste it. There it is. And then I can write right on top of it. So I can send those right out into the world. I have not had the issue where it shows up differently before and after class. I just haven't seen that. You don't necessarily need Snip and Sketch. You need something that will actually allow you to grab a screen grab. And Snip and Sketch is Microsoft. If you're on an Apple computer, I know there's a version on there. I don't remember what it's called, but where you can grab part of the screen and then you can paste it in there. The thing I like about OneNote is the OneNote app is free. So anybody that has a device can get it on there, regardless of whatever you're using. So it is fairly universal. It is free as long as you have a Microsoft account. Yeah, so screenshot for Mac. Okay, within the virtual classroom, I'm actually sending my my OBS information. This stuff is what's going out wherever I'm teaching at. Okay, so it looks like open board is a possibility. Yeah, there's lots of ways you can grab things for this. So I'm telling you the specific ones that I use, but now that you kind of have an idea that this can be done, you can jump in and try the different things out. Okay, so let me go back into my presentation just because looks like we have a couple of minutes here before the end, about 10 minutes it looks like. And here we go. Oh yeah, before I go on to something else, when I'm doing most of my lectures, I like to actually use PowerPoint because I can set these equations up ahead of time and kind of work through them. You miss kind of that, oh, I made a mistake and go back and fix it type of things, but I can highlight, I can make my ink colors different in it and set it up. And I can actually save these things as images and then put alternative text on it. Okay, so actually, let me show you. Well, actually, so right now we are not using, we're using Webex separately from Blackboard. When we were using Collaborate, what I would do is I would send my camera into Collaborate so that it would would grab everything out. It would work for Google Slides for all of this. Whatever you have up on this screen, let's see. Oops. I hit a dock, but same thing. It's all right here. I can put it up onto my screen. It's that screen that I'm sending out into the world. And you can do whatever you want in here. Now, as far as drawing on Google Documents, I have not spent much time doing that. Once I found Microsoft OneNote, I've kind of jumped in whole hog. Carol, does that answer your question?
No, not really.
Oh, okay. So where, with your learning management system, can you do presentations within the that software?
Yes, it's share your screen or share. You know, there are 3 different options for what you would like to share. I don't understand what it means to send the camera to Blackboard.
Okay. So in Blackboard, if you have, and again, if you have something within your learning management system that one of the options is share your camera, by using OBS, what I've done here is this is what my webcam is actually sending out into the world. So let me go into, let's see. Sorry, this is my uncertainty here with Zoom. So right now with Zoom, I can send out any one of these items. So my OBS virtual camera is the one that OBS is putting out into the world. That's right here. When I do that, instead of being just my camera, it is everything that I have in this spot in OBS. Does that help at all? So what you're really doing is you're sending your camera out as a virtual camera, and that virtual camera can have everything in it. If I would just send out, and I don't know that it's going to let me do this because I have these in a different spot. Okay, it's not sending my other camera out because I have that set up in OBS. Oops. And I seem to have lost myself here. Okay, am I sending anything out at this point?
Trevor, all we see is the 4 square images of you.
Okay, so I somehow managed to have stopped the video camera. So let me. So this is one of the things to realize with all this, that the fancier you get with it, the easier it is to screw things up. So I'm just restarting my OBS. Nope. Okay, so I'm going to go old school and I'm going to share my screen. I won't be able to do quite as many fancy effects this time. So let's see. Okay, can you now see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, great. Yeah, so basically I'm sending this information out into the world when I can actually send my camera out into the world. So it's actually treating my camera as a whole screen. Okay, so doing this, with all the bells and whistles does take a little bit of time to learn as you go through. So all the other things that I was thinking about presenting, about polling software, about using a green screen, those are up in those are up so that you can see them. Okay, so good question, Carol. My recommendation would be look up how to set up a camera with OBS and just the camera. Then you can start to layer things from there. If you take a look at the picture-in-picture information that I listed earlier, and I will re-put those in. That'll help you get started with it. This is not something to try on day one. This is something to kind of work yourself into. And then the video that I have that's not quite as frantic as doing it live. Is there. So Rooney, I have thought about using the polling features in Webex, which I'm assuming are going to be similar to Zoom. The thing I didn't like about it when it was first rolled out was I had to do it live each time. If you use Poll Everywhere, see if I can get to Poll Everywhere, you can set it up in Poll Everywhere, but then you can put it into whatever type of presentation that you want. So I can go here to my activities. I could go into any one of these. I can put it into PowerPoint as a slide or Google Docs as a slide. There's apps to put them into the different items, or I can just present it online. Let's see. So I should be able to send that right out now, and folks could go in and put answers to that. So Poll Everywhere does not collect the individual responses. I would use this more as a formative type of thing to see how students are doing. And what I sometimes do is I don't show the responses, but then I send students out into breakout rooms and allow them to talk with one another and try to convince each other who has the right answer. And then I bring them back, do the poll over again, and see if things have changed. And I do have some information about that into the PowerPoint slides that I sent out earlier, but I'll put those in as well again. And if you're interested on more on using Poll Everywhere, let's see. Here's information on using Poll Everywhere. I've got 2 YouTube videos that I put together. One's kind of an introduction. The other is a little bit more how to actually set something up with it. Okay, any other questions? I think we are at time.
We are. Thanks, Trevor.
You're welcome.
I don't know about anybody else, but I'll be playing with OBS as soon as Otter is over.
Yeah, and if anybody wants to contact me, I'm going to type my email in here. I am willing within reason to help folks out, or if you would like to have me stop by for a virtual meeting for a group, I can do that as well.
It's very generous of you. Thanks, Trevor.
You're welcome. Okay, thanks everyone for participating. I
Thanks,
appreciate it.
Trevor. Appreciate it so much. And to the rest of you, we have a 15-minute break before we start our next session at 2 o'clock, and that will be no grade. Yes, please. Motivational and interaction value of ungraded activities in online learning. And that's going to be presented by Tonka Yokolova, who is actually a member of our Otter Planning Committee. So I'm going to stop recording now.